So it's about 2. I'm actually not really hungover. I'm just more of a little bit tired, scratchy throat. It's more of a throat hangover than an alcohol hangover. I need to finish my grocery shopping. I don't expect to do much today, but hopefully I get a start up on the rest of the archiving, and I'm about to go do that. More ominous skies. You scared? The temperature actually came down quite dramatically. Ended up like it's my winter jacket on. It's a little late in the year for a winter jacket, even in Canada, but so be it. Actually a cold front coming in this week, so I should get the groceries done today for that reason as well. Don't want to be trudging through the tundra, the April tundra. Welcome to Canada. Yeah, it's gloomy, a little cold, but the jacket actually makes it quite comfortable, and I am going to go get some wake up juice. I find that this is the best way to deal with a throat hangover. Throat hangovers happen when you smoke too much in an evening, or when you're just drinking in a dry environment. It's the day after consequence of pasties. That's the other way to describe that. So yeah, it's the carbonation, right? The carbonation combined with the caffeine works towards good medicine. As far as wake up juice goes, in day after scenarios. There are other options, but the key is the carbonation, which is why you probably want to go with a cola. Whatever you choose. Dr. Pepper is the most caffeinated cola, and therefore it is my cola of choice. I also like the cherry kind of after flavor. Anyways, that's the deal with that. It is cold, and I don't really like it, but so be it. I gotta keep walking. Get to the store. I'm looking for ice cream, cheese, and they didn't have eggs yesterday in my main store, so if I can find some of those, that'd be great. I've been having pleasant walks over the last few days. This is another one. Let's have a pleasant walk. There's nothing pleasant about an intersection, and we return to the pleasant walking. The sun has miraculously appeared. And how? I'm actually glad I got that. Now when I'm trying to be pleasant, you fucking truck. You can't even be pleasant around trucks. They should be eliminated. I'm actually not joking, but the sun just like, those are great moments when you're walking down the sidewalk and it's kind of gloomy and the sun just brightens out. That's a nice thing to catch for a vlog. Alright, so I'm gonna put this aside for a sec because there's people. Never did warm to those people. I don't ultimately consider, excuse me, I don't consider myself a member of Homo sapiens. I'm just not one of you. It's something that I've received a little bit of pushback on over the years, but I've been quite consistent. I am a species of one, and I just, I refuse to identify myself. I know that may be confusing to certain people that want absolute acceptance amongst all barriers and these kinds of things, and I think all you humans should like, I'm in favor of all of that universal acceptance stuff as it applies to humans, but I'm not one of you. I'm not a human, so and the sun has now gone away again. I'm sure it'll be back. You can't bottle that pleasantness. I should put this up on one of those YouTube meditation or reflection videos. Peacefulness, pleasantness. But I think the silliness has now come to a close. It's the pleasantness again. I'm kind of a slave. Those are some nice clouds. Oh, quiet now. I'm having some pleasantness. There's nothing pleasant about car horns. Give me a few more weeks and those trees will have little buds in them, and that will be even more pleasant. Yes, all of this pleasantness. It's quite pleasant. They didn't have any ice cream for me this month, so I'm gonna have to walk all the way to store number 3 to get some ice cream. It's okay, it's pleasant. I can have some more pleasantness as I enjoy the pleasant day. Aha! Now that is marvelously pleasant. I'm just enjoying the pleasantness as I... Can we skip with the pleasantries? And just be pleasant? Let's do that. Some sun again. It's nice. Absolutely splendidly pleasant. Cop cars. See, well, others may be tempted to blame the break-in pleasantness on some kind of a criminal, which would, no doubt, justify charges of disrupting the pleasantness. You have been charged with crimes against pleasantries. I'm actually more inclined to blame it on the police officer, as I suspect that the so-called crime against pleasantry is likely of nobody, or of harm to no one. And thus, the true crime, the true perpetrator, the true purveyor of anti-pleasantries would be the police officer, no doubt. Although, one should not speak in generalities when the importance lay within the specifics. This is a little bit less pleasant, so, I mean, it's still fairly pleasant. It's not meant to be a pond, it's just irrigation water, or drain water. I don't think it's actually irrigating anything, it's just draining. But, I suppose we can speak of degrees of pleasantness, right? I just went from an overwhelming plethora of pleasantness, kind of a more muted affair, where the pleasantness is still apparent, but no longer at such an overwhelming level. I think I should just, be quiet and keep going, right? That's the right thing to do right now. Well, I stopped by the salami store on the way home on my pleasant day, and I only got half the amount that I would normally get, but it's not the end of the world. It seems as though a good way, or what better way to end a pleasant day than with some cheesecake? Let's see if this is any good. Now, I will acknowledge that I am not exactly the world's greatest cheesecake connoisseur. However, I kind of got a little bit on my camera, that's why I'm a little bit slow here. There we go. Yes, I am not the world's greatest cheesecake connoisseur, but that is quite good, and I am going to enjoy it. So this is what, number 3? I noticed that a lot of the cakes were basically the same thing, which is different colored icing. So I may not try all of them, kind of thing. The remaining goodies are mostly like little balls of things and fruit cups and that kind of thing. So the diversity of the treats that I bring back will no doubt be increasing in the future. That might be the last piece of cake I get for a while, but it's yummy. I've got another article up with these racist models, and I've got another rant, so here I go. This is racist pseudoscience, fell under phrenology and racial-based intelligence testing. The media is just cramming it down everybody's throats. If you need evidence of hierarchical systemic racism, look no further than the Clinton campaign's race relations strategy and its parroting in the media.
I've demonstrated repeatedly that there isn't even a really meaningful correlation. The real correlation is over age. So the correlative basis of a logical error of saying she wins because of black voters isn't even true in the first place. So forget it. Correlation does not imply causality. Okay, but the correlation isn't even there. So it's more than just saying this is a logical error. It's not even there in the first place, okay? So it shouldn't be surprising to anybody that the models have consistently been 10 to 15 points off in making predictions. The racist models suggested she would do better in Illinois than Ohio, for example. Something that was obviously absurd to anybody with a cursory understanding of the cultures of these places. Ohio voted for Bush. And it's likewise absolutely ridiculous to suggest that Sanders will win West Virginia. But I'll get to that in a moment. As the data has come in, we've learned that Sanders has been competitive with young blacks in less conservative states. He has not been competitive with older blacks, but he has not been competitive with older whites either. He has just broadly not been competitive with old people. That's the real connection, and that's the reason Florida was such a rout. The real lesson to take away from the demographics is that young blacks are voting at a dramatically lower level proportionally than young whites. There's obviously a serious issue of disengagement with the traditional political system. If young blacks were voting at the same percentage as young whites, Sanders would be carrying the black vote in the northern states. And that's actually a serious issue. It's something the media should be strenuously focusing on. Why aren't young blacks voting at the same levels as young whites? But we haven't had an opportunity yet to turn the models on their heads. I was hoping Hawaii would be the first to break, but the reality is that there wasn't any polling done there. The Rust Belt states should be interpreted as blurring the correlations. They haven't been interpreted as they should, but there wasn't anywhere where the predictions were dramatically wrong either. So the pseudoscience can maintain a line of plausibility by pointing to error. Again, I'm suggesting it's a proxy variable. So you can accidentally get to the right answers so long as it continues to be the case that 1. All the states with high black populations have overwhelmingly right-leaning bases of Democrats. And 2. All the states with low black populations have overwhelmingly left-leaning bases of Democrats. And you get it right every time, but by accident. You haven't even attempted to falsify it yet. You have not done the proper experiment. There are 2 types of states that have not yet voted. The first are states with high black populations that are left-leaning. That would include Maryland, D.C., and Delaware. You gotta wonder if even just the pot thing won't help them in D.C., right? And 2 are states with low black populations that are right-leaning. That would include Kentucky and West Virginia. Okay, I need to reiterate, these tests have not been done. We do not know their outcome. But in order to put any faith in the model, it is necessary to test them. One should not say that Maryland should vote for Clinton because it has a lot of blacks. One should say that we can only determine the relationship between skin color and voting intention by controlling for ideology, and that the Maryland and Delaware DC state is essential in building the data set. So don't listen to these people. Okay, their models should not be able to predict the results in the following states. First one is New York, which is liberal with blacks. The second one is Maryland, which is liberal with blacks. Delaware is also liberal with blacks. West Virginia is conservative without blacks. Kentucky is conservative without blacks. And New Jersey and D.C. are both liberal with blacks. Okay? The better model for West Virginia or Kentucky would be to look at states like Tennessee. Or maybe even Arkansas, although you gotta be careful with Arkansas. Or perhaps Virginia. Clinton got, 60% of the whites or more in all of those states. She won whites in southern Ohio. There's really no reason to think that she would win whites in West Virginia or Kentucky. Okay? We don't really have a good basis for blacks yet. There's been some recent polling that suggests that Sanders might be winning blacks in Wisconsin. He did well with young blacks in Michigan and Illinois. But we'll need to wait until the data comes in to see. Other thing you have to realize is that exit polls aren't there are biases with exit polls. Um, I'm a little skeptical about Illinois. I think that if she had really carried 70% of the black vote in Illinois, she would have won by a much larger margin. Um, I I mean, I don't have any data to reject what you saw there. I know that the pre-polling suggested that she wouldn't. I mean, the pre-polling had her around 55% blacks, I think it was, which was about the same as Latinos, and which is about what she won by. I mean, I think she got 51%, right? So, in the southern states, it's, you can understand it because, southern blacks are going to be disproportionately more conservative. Um, I, I mean, Illinois has a substantial black population, and a lot of them are voting for the Democrats. If she really got 70% of the black vote, I think she would have gotten at least 60%. I mean, he didn't blow her out with the white vote, right? So I think that the exit polls are a little bit suspect in Illinois, but I mean it's just intuition. I don't really have any. I mean, it's more than intuition. It's looking at the numbers and saying that doesn't really add up. But I mean, you can find ways to fudge the numbers and make them work, right? However, once the New York primary is done, you will at least have some data. Okay, once you get numbers from New York, then you can start throwing them around into Maryland and Delaware and stuff, right? I'm not likely to claim it will be very useful because it's still not a causal factor. Okay, but the argument will at least be different. Okay, so again, you can't use what you have to predict New York. Rather, the results of New York are a precondition to the coherency of the model. So, anybody that's trying to, tell you that the demographics project Clinton should win in New York, it's just racism. Sorry. And to repeat the observation, the video is based on flawed reasoning. It's wrong to judge somebody by what they look like, but the guy that hits you with a skateboard strikes me as an anarchist, and probably doesn't vote. But what I actually want to point out is that it's nice to see the media narrative of the spineless pacifist liberal is finally disappearing. As an anarchist of the left, this is something that's bothered me for years, this false association of the left with peacenik hippie dipshits. We need to bring the fight back into the left, and breaking down this Vietnam War era media strawman is really fundamentally important in doing so. I mean, this concept of the leftist as this, clueless, pot-smoking, the left used to be the side of the spectrum that organized, strikes, and understood the world in terms of class conflict. We might not like war, but it's because we realize that it's just, you're just fighting for the ruling class, whatever stupid thing, right? There's no benefit to the working people. The idea that leftists are all pacifists, that they don't want to fight the structure, that it's... I mean, I wasn't alive in the 60s, right? I don't know how true that ever was. I mean, I know I've read enough about undercurrents of the 60s counterculture that were militant, but it seemed like the broad society, the broad counterculture, rejected it. They were more interested in upholding fashion. I think that it was the 60s where the left went wrong, right? This whole new left. I mean, that needs to be undone. Sorry, old people, but, you kind of fucked up. and you fucked up a lot of things. You fucked up the climate, and like all of these things are going to have to get undone. And the New Left is one of those things. We can't build a better society if we're afraid to fight, if we're afraid to have conflict. The world is about conflict, and understanding class conflict. That was what the left was all about. Realizing that, okay, there's this upper class, there's a capitalist class that owns all our property, and there's the rest of us that are stuck working, right? And getting, they lost the plot. There was so much wealth. I mean, that's my understanding of it. I wasn't there again, but my understanding of it is that there was just so much wealth that they lost the plot. Okay? And it may have been tied into sort of a misunderstanding of what happened in India. I think that was a big part of it, right? There's some... I remember reading an article about Gandhi, Gandhi's tactics that was analyzed using game theory. And it was a brilliant article. But the point is that Gandhi didn't win through non-violent tactics, right? His tactic was violent. The whole point was, okay, we've got this army here in front of us, and you're going to do what we say, or we're going to, release the hounds kind of thing, right? And in the end, it were just said, we can't beat this, so we'll just give up, right? It was, a very rational decision on behalf of the British. Maybe more of a rational decision than you might be inclined to assign to a lot of these upper class types, but it nonetheless was effective, right? You don't do that by holding hands and singing Kumbaya, right? That's not emulating Gandhi. You emulate Gandhi by marching down the street with AK-47s and saying, we don't want to use this, but if you make us, then we will, right? And in fact, that's what the civil rights people did, right? The civil rights movement didn't win what it won because, it convinced people that this was the right thing to do. It won what it won by scaring the hell out of people. There's 1 million black people walking down the streets, and a lot of them are armed. What are we going to do? We better, give them some rights, or we're going to have a war on our hands, right? That's the right. See, it's very interesting to me that the device collapsed the moment I said, you emulate Gandhi by walking down the street with AK-47s and saying, I don't want to use this, but, we will if we have to, kind of thing. I've been thinking for a while that this device might be compromised. That kind of ties in with a broader understanding of the surveillance. I've gone to the great length of recording myself. Is that not enough for you? I'm recording it, I'm uploading it on the internet. I've made it very clear that there's nothing here to hide. I walk through customs multiple times a month. I mean, the whole reason that I'm in this situation right now is because I can't work when I'm going to have all these signals floating around. If you want me to get back to making music, the better thing for you to do is to, stop throwing all this interference at me. I don't know what you did to hack this thing, but like it's not gonna it'll just make me go back to where I was saying. I believe I was pointing out that that was also the reason that the civil rights movement was able to accomplish what it accomplished, right? It's not as though, a bunch of black people got together and like convinced, they're, a bunch of white capitalists that, these reforms were moral and it's the right thing to do or something. No, they marched down the street, millions of black people along with a lot of white people, but they marched down the street with weapons and they scared the ruling class. They scared them real good. Okay? That's what Gandhi was. That's what Gandhi accomplished. It's this idea that, this is our army, and we might not use it, but you need to make the decision as to whether you want to fight it or not. Okay? And that doesn't work anymore. Because, the ruling class has, they have drones, they have smart bombs, they have an array of weapons that is just not something that regular people can fight. What regular people can do, if they want to follow, the Gandhian approach, is organizing strikes, sit-down strikes. Even that is harder to put in place now than it was because so much of the production has moved out. But regardless, that's the weapon that exists. And the longer or the more often that you have organizers, taking kids out of the park, playing duck duck goose with them or whatever else, the less time is spent doing meaningful organizing, which has to be about denying labor, because there's no longer anything that working people can do to actually scare the system in terms of revolutionary potential. All we can do is refuse to work or try to take over. And I really honestly think that that's the long-term result. What is the United States going to look like in 30 years or 40 years? It's going to look like masses of unemployed people holding down factories by force. And so you're going to have the neighborhood fighting against the National Guard to take control over a factory. It's going to look more like the French Revolution than the Russian Revolution. And the reason they're going to be fighting to take over that factory is because it's going to be a food factory. Okay, and it's going to be the only way that they can feed themselves. As if they organize and they take over production by force. It's a breaking point. But I think that the path that we're on has no other logical endpoint. So, yeah, it would be nice to get back to more of a class conflict-based concept of the left, and lose this, hippies holding hands, singing songs kind of thing. That hasn't gotten us very far. The tactics that we used to use were far more effective.
This was a little after 10, and I'm still oozy from last night. I had 8 drinks last night, which is of varying strengths, which over 4 hours is. I wasn't like drunk, right? But it was enough that I felt it, and it was enough that I felt it when I woke up. So, it's kind of the point, right? You drink more than that, then you start getting drunk. It's about as far as I can push it. But I mean, I'm not. I know I look good, but you have to remember, I am in my mid-30s. I'm not
I have quite a bit of experience, and I can drink quite a bit. My body can handle it. So I know that might seem like you had 8 drinks. Well, actually, that was barely enough um, to get me buzzed. I might even say that I wasn't buzzed off the alcohol last night at all, even after 8 drinks. So, but I mean, like, I did have fun. But I'm kind of, I still kind of, and it's the alcohol that I'm feeling, not anything else. Um, so I did get some more throat, and it's mostly my throat that hurts. Like I'm feeling kind of oozy, but it's really the throat. That's the issue. The throat is the issue with the soreness. The ooziness is from the alcohol, right? So I got some more Mountain Dew. This is not quite as carbonated, so it's a little um, softer, but it's still the you have to drink a lot of water as well. You'll notice that I finished my juice. In fact, like I drank like a third of that before I went to bed. Okay. Um, Lots of juice or lots of water. Um, some scientist will tell me that I shouldn't be drinking a lot of sugar. My battery's just about out, so I'll come back in a sec. Yeah, so some scientists will tell you that you don't want to drink a lot of sugar, and they're right. But I was done drinking around 2. I didn't get home until 8 in the morning, so that was 6 hours later. Um, and I wasn't drunk anymore when I got home. So, um, whether I had that much water or that much juice in that circumstance is less important. If if you stumble out of the bar and fall into a mattress, then and you're trying to ingest liquid in the 20 seconds that you have before you pass out, then you're probably better off with water. That's well, not probably. You're absolutely better off with water in that circumstance. But um, for me, it was just a question of not being dehydrated. So um, because of that, um, I can say this as well. But I mean, you got to make sure you get lots of water before you go to sleep, one way or the other. If it's right after the bar, it should be water. If it's a little bit later, then you can get away with um, juice. Try to I mean, coffee is good, but make sure you get water with your coffee or juice with your coffee if it's a little later. Um, that is still the best thing when you wake up. But you gotta hydrate yourself too, right? So you're fighting both of those tendencies. Um, but this will, if you smoked too much, whatever you're smoking, if you smoke too much, the carbonation um, with this is good news. So that's the idea there. Um, and this place is a mess. Um, I would normally never let it get like this. So that's the idea here. And as I clean up, I will no doubt throw some things on the garbage. I want to point out though that I've missed 2 weeks of recycle. So that is literally a month of recycle, and it will be 6 weeks before it's done. It was just because it was raining, and I didn't want to put my stuff out in the rain. So I'm gonna have to do it the next one that comes up, which will be 2 weeks from now. It was normally on Wednesday mornings. It was Thursday this week because of the holiday. So it won't be this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. That's going to be super full. You know, it's hopefully it's not raining. That's all I can say. But I mean, yeah, I've got lots of cleaning to do in here, and no doubt lots of things to throw in the garbage. That sounded delicious, so I had to try it. Is it any good? It's that fake orange flavor. I should be able to actually recycle the individual parts because it's tin foil and the paper around it is actually recyclable, which is strange.
You'd think they'd have like why don't they make that recyclable too then? I don't know. I can't answer these questions. It was an impulse buy, maybe not the best choice, but so be it. It is in the garbage. This container of TP actually lasted me a lot longer than I normally would expect it to. That may be a benefit of not smoking. I seem to be a little bit more regular than I used to be. Many stickers because yesterday was grocery day in the garbage. This is packaging from an old pack of cigarettes that I found behind the table the other day. Still, it's almost 3 months now without buying a pack. I've had various amounts when I got out, but no relapse. I just found an old package, and that's some masking tape for batteries. A few different days. There was a bit of a build-up here. That's the end of that. I'm gonna finish this. I'm really prioritizing finishing the CBC stuff. By the end of the night. And then I need to make a couple of choices about editing. I think that what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let it sit. I'm not gonna like. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before, which is just wipe the computer down, and not do any editing until it's clear. Once it's clear, I can take the computer out from in that room into this room, and I can do the editing. I won't have to I can start multitasking is what I'm saying, because I can work on the other computer, the other things that I'm doing, and just focus on that in there, right? So, my focus on the election will also go down when I'm not sitting on the computer all the time. So, that's something that will resolve itself. Right now, I'm gonna wash my face, brush my teeth, and get into the other room, and that's really seriously my goal is to get that done by the time I sleep. Very much want that done. Very much. We'll see if it happens, but I'm very much focused on that for the night.
I watched the segment, and excuse me for being predictable and rejecting the media narrative, but what I saw was a rookie politician get spun around in circles by an experienced journalist. He simply didn't know how to answer the question in the way that would be most beneficial to him. See, he knew he was supposed to be tough on abortion, and consequently didn't want a sound clip that could be used against him. This is supposedly the bedrock of the Republican Party, and in a certain geographic area it is, absolutely. But Trump is not a Republican. He's a nihilist that is pretending to be a Republican for personal gain. He's not actually pro-life, and so he simply didn't know what the base of the party he's pretending to represent actually wants. Trump's response was what he thought the Republican voters wanted to hear. It's reflective of Trump's perspective of what he thinks the Republican Party is. And it's not very flattering, is it? Here's the funny thing. His answer to the gay marriage question right after was the same as Clinton's. It's up to the courts. And it was presented with no hesitation. I think that's his actual position. And he's since clarified that that's his actual position, right? What I got from the exchange is that Donald Trump is a psychopathic liar that will say whatever he thinks will get him elected. And I don't even think he's even pro-life. So, that's the amazing part of it. I pointed this out in one of my other clips. The media is trying to spin it in a specific way, and there's no doubt that he put his foot in his mouth, okay? But what I get on a takeaway from this is not that I should be afraid of Trump's, scary abortion position, but it's that Trump's abortion position is a lot of BS. And I'm consequently not really at all concerned about his position on abortion. Maybe if I was pro-life, I would be concerned. But all the pro-life states have already voted. And my takeaway is that I think it's pretty clear that he's pro-life. Sorry, that he's pro-choice. And there's not really much to be worried about. see, on the one hand, it is an error for Trump in the sense that he's consistently losing his appeal to the people that he's supposed to be representing. On the other hand, we've got the whole Inspector Gadget thing again, where he clearly screwed up, but it may actually help him win the states that are upcoming, where being ideologically pro-life and inflexibly so, like Ted Cruz or something, would be something that would put you at a disadvantage with voters, even within the Republican Party. And as far as the general is concerned, let me put it this way. I don't think that's something that anybody on the Democrats wants to remind you of. Yeah. Da 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 da. Inspector Gadget. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. So I've got my shit Hillary said from yesterday up. It's a little after 1 o'clock on the 2nd. I got a little bit distracted again. So this is the one from yesterday. It's the now infamous Super Predator speech. I want to point out that actually watching the video is probably a good idea. Because it's more than just a racist statement. She's talking about the kind of vigilante groups that led to the shooting of Trayvon Martin. She calls it community policing. Community policing is kind of a code word for that kind of vigilantism. She's talking about putting hundreds of thousands of police officers on the ground. It's worrisome in a broader context than simply the Super Predator statement. She is, laying out plans for a police state. She's clearly in favor of that. And it's just another piece of evidence that Hillary Clinton is essentially a Republican. She might look a little bit, appealing in comparison to the crazy Republicans that they have out there nowadays, but she's where the center of the Republican Party would have been 30 years ago. And if you listen to her talk, the whole Clinton presidency was that Republican light, right? And I think that's, as ridiculous as the statement was, it's you're missing the point if you're honing in just simply on that. Okay, it's and she could apologize for that, but it's a broader context, and I don't really. It's not something that she should apologize for. And if she was to apologize, then it wouldn't make any sense. Because it's just her perspective. And it's been clear over many years that that's her perspective. And, this is supposed to be just about what she said. And really my point is just that you should pay a little bit more attention to what she said in this particular clip. Let me change my focus here. There's the URL. It's in the description. And that's what you're searching for if you're Googling it. Alright. So there's my shit Hillary said for April 1st. The other half of community policing, of course, is the community's role. Citizens have to be active participants in crime prevention. In Houston, nearly 1,000 new officers added to the city's police force since 1991 have been joined by thousands of citizen patrollers, observing and reporting suspicious or criminal behavior in an anti-crime campaign. So again, that's a lot of code words. But even if you're skeptical about the code words, it's also a very scary idea of, creating a society where people are snitching on each other and you live in fear of being ratted out by your fellow citizens. Is that what you want to live in? It's kind of Orwellian, isn't it? And there's a common theme there. But that's something Hillary said. And again, that's something she's talked about a lot for her career. I've got an article here suggesting that Sanders might win the black vote in Wisconsin. And he might. I think he might lose the white vote, though. Right. And it's just that I need to remind you here that my academic background is not in politics or philosophy or screwing around and having fun. It's actually mathematics. I am interested in policy, don't get me wrong. And I don't have much interest in competition. So I'm not about the horse race, okay? But I do find the idea of approaching the election as a math problem to be fascinating. That's why I'm bothering. I've been over this elsewhere. It's not exactly a typical approach. But the support for the idea that race is predictive just isn't there. That's really what I'm trying to get across, okay? I've railed against racist media narratives, but it also may be a little bit of laziness all around. It may be attempting to try and reuse ideas from 2008. It says tempting. I meant to say attempting. In fact, I should just go ahead and change that right now. In 2008, you had a black guy running. It's the first time that's ever really seriously happened. I mean, you had Jesse Jackson, I guess Al Sharpton ran, but they weren't really considered serious candidates. So when you had this serious candidate show up and he's a black guy, it's a little different, right? And certainly, if there was a very large Jewish population in the United States, one might be tempted to draw those sorts of conclusions. Conversely, I think that there is an argument to suggest that Hillary Clinton is benefiting from female voters that are of a certain age, and there might be some identity politics there. But those are different kinds of... I mean, it's one thing to say there's a black guy running, so therefore black guy people will vote for the black guy, right? That's not the same thing as saying that there's this white woman running and all the black people are going to vote for the white woman instead of the logic doesn't transfer, okay? Saying, black people in one place will vote... Black people in one place did vote for this candidate, therefore black people in another place will vote for the candidate. That's not good logic. Unless that candidate... Unless you can establish that there's a reason why the blackness is actually a causal factor. And pretty much the only reason the blackness is a causal factor is if the candidate is black, or if the other candidate's an obvious racist, right? I mean, if you had one candidate that was running... I mean, if Hillary Clinton was running against Strom Thurmond or something, well then, okay, that would make sense because the other candidate's a racist, right? But in the existing situation where there's no real basis for that to come up based on racial politics, there's no causal reason, right? It's not, and I should verify. I should be clear about that, right? There's not there could be a causal reason, and then, but you'd have to establish that first, right? To just base it entirely on correlation is racist. But to suggest that that correlation has a causal, I mean, if you can establish a causality, then you're not making the error anymore, right? You're not saying correlation implies causality. You're saying this is causal, right? And in 2008, there was a causal reason for it. In some other year, if one of the candidates was openly racist, then there would be a causal relation there, right? But the existing scenario, there is no causality. And trying to suggest that there is racist. I'm sorry. So this is just an article that's backing up my perspective a little bit. That's all that is. And this is another article that suggests that's trying to argue that Hillary Clinton's non-white support has collapsed. My response to that is that I'm a little skeptical about the polls in West Virginia and Kentucky and Indiana. They found some polls of like university students in Kentucky, and that might be accurate. But I mean to suggest that the polls amongst university students are, I mean that would, we know that Sanders will probably win the young people vote in Kentucky, okay, and probably in West Virginia too. He won young people in most of the other states, okay. I think he won young people in Georgia and in Tennessee as well. Okay. But if young people are only 15% of the people that vote, then and Clinton wins old people by if she gets 80% of the vote over 50, which she probably will, then that doesn't really transfer to a useful polling. Okay. And then they pulled out some similarly fishy polls in these other places. These polls have not showed up in any of the aggregates, and there's a reason for it because they're not general polling. Okay, this is at the Huffington Post. It may be a little bit of pro-Bernie spin there. That's fine. It's about time we got some pro-Bernie spin there. But I mean, I'm still a rationalist. You can spin it one way or the other. I'm gonna unspin it, right? It would be good news, don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna wait for some more widely reported polling. And I have no comment on Clinton's supposed collapse in the South. I'm more inclined to suggest that the North and South are dramatically culturally different than I am to suggest that Sanders doing well amongst blacks in the North implies her support amongst blacks is failing in the South. I mean, it's the same logical error in reverse, right? But the article is broadly drawing attention to the correct things, finally, and it is. I would suggest reading this article. It doesn't make any accusations. It uses its words carefully. But it discusses some things that are not being discussed elsewhere. And I would consequently suggest giving that a read.